It's Friday again. I can't believe the weeks just keep rumbling by. 19 years of doing this, and you know what the big difference is? Is that I'm gray. Look, see all this, I get older, and the show doesn't get any better. Welcome to Moohead Radio. I'm your host. And we got Derek with us. We got Peter Double P with us, and we got an hour of sports talk to go over with Browns and AFC North draft picks and sizing up, where we are in our division. But I wanted to start out the program with saying something that is becoming increasingly clear. And no, it doesn't have anything to do with Baker Mayfield. That for the Cleveland Guardians, Stephen Kwan can hit a baseball. And it's just further evidence that a guy who hit 300 every year in the minor leagues, he's coming up and hitting 300 in the big leagues. He's a line drive hitter. He can hit the ball to the opposite field. He can get his hands through the ball. He hit a home run the other day. He reminds me very much at the plate of a later Omar Vizquel. I don't know that he's going to hit 300 in the big leagues, but I could see him easily hitting a 275, 280. And he seems to be playing a steady right field. And he gets his bat on the ball, and he can drop. What's funny is when we were playing a team like Toronto, who is just, I've never seen a team that is so shift crazy in my life. And they kept playing everybody on the right side of the infield. And both he and Naylor just kept on slapping the ball the other way. And then when they went in on a pitch, Kwan turned around on it and hit it just barely over the wall in right field. Granted, it was a Dwayne Kuiper-esque home run, but the fact of the matter is that there are guys who get their bat on the ball and don't strike out very much. And he makes contact. And if the infield is pulled in, it doesn't take much for him to poke it through the infield. No, he's not going to be a big RBI guy. And, but it's a hell of a story of how many guys are there like him who are dying and rotting in the minor leagues because the big leagues want the guy with the big arcing swing who strikes out 1/3 or 1/4 of the time they're at bat in the hopes of hitting a long ball and getting RBIs. And it sickens me what baseball has become, but it's a breath of fresh air watching a guy like Stephen Kwan play the game. He plays hard and he's calm at the plate. He's got a good eye. He doesn't chase bad pitches. And even his outs are barreled up in a lot of cases. He makes solid square contact. So I just wanted to point it out. Something good about the Guardians, not the 9,000 people who were watching them, mind you, who realize that the end is near. This is like the baseball apocalypse in Cleveland. Nobody wants to, it's like you put together lake effect, cold weather, and the Guardians, and it's like, suppose you had a party and nobody came. That's what this looks like. But they're only one game under 500. Francona is a good manager who deserves far better than what he's getting. And I just wanted to point out something positive. And Franmil Reyes actually has hit a few balls in the last couple of games, which tells me maybe he's starting to warm up a little bit. And, of course, Ramirez has been really, really good. All right, let's talk football because this show doesn't make what little reputation that it has discussing baseball. What we're talking about today is the whole idea. And before I even do that, I wanted to, in passing, mention that Erich Barnes, the former cornerback for the Cleveland Browns from 1965 to 1971. This is part of my era. I watched Erich Barnes play. He started playing with the Giants. He came to the Browns, and he passed away at 86 years of age. All baseball or football players should live until they're 86. Erich Barnes was a guy who was a guy I remember watching when I was a young kid. And
good
sorry
for
to
him. That's That is a long life for a football player. 86. That's a really good, really good.
Yeah, and I just wanted to pass along in honor of him because the old time players don't get the press. That's for sure. Now, ESPN has no memory. They just want to talk about what's now. Here's a quote. All right, and I'm going to get the show off with getting something off my chest. Here's the quote. I think we really like the mix. You're really gonna like this quote, by the way, Derek. We really like the mix. Certainly, Kevin can talk about this too. The different characteristics that each guy brings. I think collectively it is a really, really nice room. I wish I could do Donald Trump impression. That sounds like a nice, nice room. I think we feel like the room can do sort of anything and everything. We have some speed. We have some great route runners. We have guys who are tough after the catch. We have guys who have contested catch ability. In terms of building out concepts within our scheme, I think there's an awful lot we can do with these guys, spoken by my friend Paul DePodesta. I don't want a baseball guy telling me how good the wide receiver room is. Jesus, make that stop. He has no idea what makes a good wide receiver. He looks at a bunch of statistics on a sheet of fucking paper, and he knows nothing about the game of football. Fuck DePodesta. Fuck him in the ass. I don't like it. I don't like the fact that we have a little of this and a little of that. I want a lot, okay? I've been a Browns fan, I told you, since 1965. I want a lot, When I go into a Golden Corral, me and Romeo Crennel, when we go into a Golden Corral, it's like a little bit of this. I want a lot, okay? The only reason I'm in a fucking Golden Corral is because there's a lot, okay? It's not like, you have a gourmet menu. It isn't anything like that. I want a lot. I want a lot of speed. I want a lot of guys with good hands. I want guys who all will go up and fight for the ball, and I want guys who will come back on dead-end patterns and come back to the quarterback and make themselves available. Am I asking for too much, Derek?
No, I mean, it is interesting how they have built this room, but I don't think we're done. I still think Will Fuller will be added at some point. It's just a matter of when. But no, I don't disagree with you. It is kind of interesting how they've not schematically, but strategically kind of added to this room. It's just interesting. And I'll say this, I had this pointed out to me on Twitter. I think the man's name was Tony. So just to give him credit for this, because I didn't think of this, but he did. He messaged me during the draft and said, I don't know if you've noticed this, but AB has only drafted or brought in receivers 6 foot or taller.
Right.
So that could be a preference. Now, when I say that, I don't count Jakeem Grant because he's really a special teamer, but I do find that interesting. Seems like AB's got a type when it comes to his receivers.
Look out, DG's in the room. My people. All right. But you see, on the other side of the equation, is it's obvious the Browns don't think they have a receiver problem. You ever have a friend who's an alcoholic who just doesn't think they have a drinking problem? Well, that's the Browns, but with wide receivers. They don't have a receiver problem in their eyes. And you can tell how differently they handle circumstances where they think they do have a problem. For example, all right, you go out and you get Cade York, you go out and you get Bojorquez, and then you end up getting Jakeem Grant.
Yeah.
So obviously people within the organization are aware of the fact that we have no special teams capability, right?
Boy, if that don't work this year, Prefer is gone quickly.
You got that right.
They put so much into that room.
Yeah, but to talk about hot seat. But again, can you imagine if the Browns had gone after wide receivers like they went after special teams people? Jeepers, Oh, here's Broncola. Bronk, how are you doing, buddy?
Injured reserve.
Well, all right. Moo. Oh God, cankles. Bronk's got cankles. All God's children got wings. All right. So I look at the two situations between special teams and wide receiver, and I see that I don't want to hear the excuse, well, we didn't have a first round pick. I don't want to hear that fucking excuse. I mean, the fact of the matter is you had enough picks that you were able to jump in and improve your special teams at the expense of your wide receivers. And I don't think that's a good idea. That is the biggest single complaint. And I'm going to let Derek now haul off and tell you his most dreaded mistake that the Cleveland Browns made, in his opinion. Hit it, Derek.
Well, I've been doing some film on Martin Emerson because people keep killing me about that, saying I'm wrong, and give him a chance. It's like I said, I think in our draft reaction episode here, it's not that he's just terrible all around. He does have some skill sets.
Well, go ahead and tell us how you really feel.
I mean, like I said, he's good. He's physical. He's long, whatever. He can jam guys, throw them off the route. That's great. But I watched all 22 of Martin Emerson. And for everybody who doesn't know what all 22 is, it's basically like the coach's film. So when a team gets in the room after the fact and they're pointing out, hey, so-and-so,
that's what they're watching, right?
Yep. So yep. I don't even know how I found it. It was somehow through a loophole that I found this. And I can tell you this, I'm very, very concerned. He can't recover to save his life. And what I mean by that is if the wide receiver has him beat at all, he's not coming back. I mean, he can't do it. The speed definitely shows on the field. Corner is a position that you have to have fluid hips. You have to have good footwork and solid speed. He just does not have that. And those things are not something that you can teach. That's kind of my problem here. Like, I get it if you like a player, but hey, you can't really teach the speed. So what are we doing here? I mean, he's the fifth string corner.
And he's going to be the guy. He's going to get Blue Bayou, right? He's going to get left in the dust. If he doesn't have recovery skills and he's facing top-notch receivers in the NFL, they're going to get behind him in a big furry hurry. If what you're saying is true, it ain't going to take long for anybody to discover that. Who was the guy we had? It was like Sendejo, It's like, we'll pass the guy along, old Sendejo, in the secondary. It's like the guy's 10 yards past him in a heartbeat, That's the kind of shit that happens, if you're correct.
The only thing I can really give him as far as like a positive is he's not going to be forced into a big-time role. That's a good thing. He's very young, so I guess you could say he could still get better and develop, but aside from that, man, and unless you're planning on just having him strictly pressed up man to jam receivers or playing a deep, soft zone like we've seen Joe Woods, I don't know why this was the pick. I don't. I would have rather traded back and gotten Kobe Bryant later if you want to corner that bad.
I think part of there's going to be pushback because why draft him at the position we did? But I think we drafted Emerson more so to be a depth piece, which, yes, our first pick, that is a lot for a guy to be a third piece. But all we heard off season last year was, oh, Joe Woods, he wants to run the three safeties, and he got Harrison back, who I think they are going to play him in a deep role. They're going to play John Johnson probably in that box closer to the line, and then they're going to play Grant Delpit kind of in that third linebacker where he blitzes off the edge and can cover the flat zone. So, and then we'll have Denzel and Newsome on the outside. So I think he'll be a depth feast for maybe when like the team brings in 3-4 receivers and then he can come onto the field. But I think he was drafted more so to not start but be a backup.
Well, the interesting thing that I was reading about was I hear that Jabril Peppers might actually kind of play for the Browns because they're going to line him up outside of the stadium.
Oh, God.
I mean, all of this, just give up yardage in front of you and let them go down the field and score. I don't, I've never followed this whole thing.
That's another thing, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but that's another thing that I found watching his tape. If you watched it, it's not, he gives up short passes, right? So when he plays deep, a lot of times the receivers will just do like a curl route on him or a comeback, and they'll just go, let's say he's dropped back 15 yards. They'll run like a 12-yard comeback, and then they'll just tackle him right there. So yes, he can tackle and he's physical, but that's going to be open all day long because he has no break. He can't break on a route. So what you see in Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome, and I would even say Greedy a lot of times with some of that skill set,
And Green.
nowhere near. Nowhere near. He should really, honestly, if you wanted my best opinion, and obviously I'm not a coach or anything like that, I'm no expert, but if you said, hey, here's the player you got to work with, put him in the best position, he'd be a strong safety on my team. I wouldn't have him as a corner.
Yeah. I wanted to mention a few things just around the league real quick before we get into more depth about the draft. I mean, I don't know what the fuck's going on with Las Vegas. I don't mean the city. I mean the football team. I wonder what's going on in the city too, but that's another story for another time. Dan Ventrell is
every year.
Yeah, Dan Ventrell is out as the president of the Raiders. You can take the Raiders out of Oakland, but you can't take the Oakland out of the Raiders. As long as there's a man named Davis in charge, weird shit happens. Get this. This is the quote from the owner of the team. Dan Ventrell is no longer with the Raiders organization. We will have no further comment at this time. It's like, I mean, what is this? Like, usually they have something prepared. I mean, it's like, did they just find out he's a pedophile? What is the story here?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Oh.
No longer with the team. Well, why?
Just like that. I mean, it sounds like Carrie Bradshaw. And just like that, he wasn't with the team anymore. He was named the team's full-time president right after the 2021 season. It's like, what did he do? I want to know. In addition, Jeremy Aguero on Thursday resigned as the Raiders' chief operations and analytics officer after 7 months.
Oh my gosh.
So what in the hell is happening there?
Could it be the Gruden stuff, do you think? That maybe they're worried about that flaming down, or I don't know.
I don't know. I have no idea what this is about, but that can't speak well. And, and Derek Carr is saying, all these Cleveland Browns are saying that they feel disrespected. I decided to stay here and look what I'm getting.
He recruited Devontae Adams, in my opinion, the best receiver in the league. And you can't get your front office straight.
Yeah, very, very, very strange. A very strange situation.
Next up, are we talking about Hugh Jackson?
Well, I will talk about Huey. What, he's 337 and 1. Is that what we're talking about?
He was in the news again.
What did he do now?
He lost the tanking, paying to tank.
Yeah. So he's 3 and 37 and 1. Yeah. He's still got that one tie though to kind of mollify himself. I don't.
Can you jump in the lake again?
Did you
Why
see
is
Rick's
this?
comment? Rick goes,
No,
they
I
must,
want to see this though.
he goes, they must have finally looked at the tape.
So help me God. I mean, it's ludicrous that anybody, you know what he is? He is the kind, you know how they have expert witnesses? Then they have anti-expert witnesses. And you pray to the baby Jesus that Hui doesn't step forward and say, I'll support your guy. It's like, go away,
Oh my gosh,
go
yeah.
away. Everything the man touches turns to tin. He has the anti-Midas touch. Unbelievable. Yeah. There's nothing good to be said about Hugh Jackson. There really isn't. I never thought there was, and now that he's gone, he's the gift that keeps giving. Oh my God. And then there's this. Coach Pete Carroll says he doesn't see the Seahawks trading for a quarterback before the start of the 2022 season.
CJ Stroud season for Seattle, I guess.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, this is becoming the most bizarre thing. The Baker Mayfield story, you know, if they made it into a movie, it wouldn't be like Rudy that was 2 hours and 15 minutes. It would be like 27 minutes and then it would just stop. There would be no conclusion to the story. The movie would just stop and everyone would say, what the hell happened? And the projector break? And it's like, no, that's it. That's it. That's the full story here. And everyone get out of their seats and leave the theater. I've never in my life seen anything like this.
Well, and you know what the funniest part is? There are people who still believe that the reason that we have not traded him or released him or whatever you want to say, some people believe it's because we're keeping him to play this season. He will never, ever step foot for the Cleveland Browns on the field again. Never. And it's laughable to think that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Could you see a situation arising, and I'm saying this jokingly, not seriously, that the Browns would start out the year and it's like, well, Baker didn't show up, but he beat out Jacoby Brissett for the starting position.
Oh, my God.
Because Deshaun Watson can't play. You know, I would say that they have no intention of ever putting him on the field again. But to be honest with you, I think the reason fans want this is they see Jacoby Brissett and we'll do a good one. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
That guy.
I need that.
Yeah. It can't, the ball can't move down the field. It just doesn't work that way. Jacoby Brissett is a career drive staller, non-touchdown scorer. The only eyes that are going to get big on the bench will be Cade York because he knows he's going to be called upon over and over again.
Well, at least we can rely on him, or so it
I
seems,
believe
but
that's the case.
I
But
believe so too.
so that's the reason why I think people are saying this about Baker Mayfield is that, you know, the drop off between Deshaun Jackson and the what am I saying?
Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett.
And Jacoby Brissett is like jumping off a fucking cliff. Let's be honest about it. I mean,
It's not even at the most interesting part yet, because if the Browns don't trade him by training camp, Baker's required to show up, or the team has to fine him. They can't waive the fines, so you'd have to show up.
No
It's a very good
chance.
point.
There's no chance.
Because under
I
the
know-
new CBA, they can't waive the fines. They automatically have to do it from the league.
I mean, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound. The league has basically told the Browns, you wanted to pay $230 million, so what's another 18.8? Fuck you. That's
Well,
basically, that's what the league's saying.
I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe somebody in the comments or whatever, but I think if he does not show up, the league will determine that as like misconduct or something, and then that would void that guarantee because he
You
would
may
then
be
be
right.
breaking contract. Now that could be wrong, but I know I heard that at some point.
I think you need to get your lawyer friend back on this show to clarify the situation because it is something that's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's NFL rules. That isn't law. That's not something
Yeah,
that
I
a guy
know, but
who puts his shingle out would know. Who knows what the laws are and the rules are in the NFL? They make half of them up as they go along. Then looking at our draft compared to other teams, under normal circumstances, you'd say we needed to exceed what the Cincinnati Bengals would do because the Bengals are the defending champions.
yeah, they still are. I think everyone's forgotten about that.
Yeah, but I think there's good reason to wonder out loud whether Joe Burrow is going to remain healthy, whether their Mike Brown will find a way to fuck it up. There is always seemingly a way in Cincinnati. And when we look at the drafts, especially the Ravens draft and the Steelers draft to a lesser degree in my mind than the Ravens draft, both of those teams outdrafted the Bengals, and the Bengals and the Browns had the two worst drafts in the AFC North, which is historical. It's not hysterical, but it's historical. So the Bengals went defense heavy. And look, that's the right direction to go. There are a lot of different opinions. Pick 31, which was Daxton Hill from Michigan. Some people believe that they nailed the pick and he's really a great player. Other people just say he's a kind of a B rating and is not the singular guy who's going to make that secondary that much better. I look at all of the picks and there are a lot of B's and B minuses, that kind of thing. I mean, Cam Taylor-Britt, there's going to be a division coming out of Nebraska. Some people like his ability to make plays because he had 11 passes defense last year in Nebraska and forced 4 fumbles over the course of 4 seasons. And he seemed to play well against teams like Michigan, Minnesota, and Michigan State, who we all know the story of Nebraska, close but no cigar. They played them tough but didn't win. He could be a good, solid NFL player, but there is no... Everybody believes this is a B rating grade for where they were at round 2, pick 60. All right.
I'd say a C+. I'm not very high on him personally.
And that's what we're seeing with the defensive lineman, Zachary Carter out of Florida. They were looking to bolster their defensive line, but no. 12 and a half sacks in 2 seasons playing in Florida. How is he going to get on the field with Sam Hubbard, DJ Reader, and BJ Hill already entrenched on the defensive line? And why did they go that route with a round 3 95th pick? A lot of people giving that a C grade. Their offensive lineman out of North Dakota State, he's another one of these things that the Browns always do. He's two mints in one. He can play both tackle spots. He did at North Dakota State, which doesn't mean a hell of a lot because he probably could have played tight end there too. Okay.
Yeah.
He got first team All-American honors at left tackle in 2021. Big fella at 6'6" and 315 pounds. He's more of a pass protector. but you know, he's a real trench fighter, but North Dakota State ain't the NFL. And this is a C rating by most people who are picking the Bengals draft. It's like, I don't like the idea. I mean, I like it when we know what position a guy's going to play. But if you have a wide receiver that you say, you know, we're consider converting him into a tight end, that means he's not fast enough. You know?
Yeah.
It's just like in baseball. It's like, he was a third baseman. We converted him into a catcher. It's because he can't hit. Okay? He has a good arm, but he can't hit.
You know what the theme is, though, with this Bengals draft? I did not like their draft personally, but they really kind of punted on getting better players to go with versatile players.
That's
which
right.
Yeah.
I get it, but at the same time, I watched a lot of Daxton Hill. It's not that he's a bad player. I just think he was a lot overrated. I think, to me, he was a second-round pick that they took in the first. Cam Taylor-Britt, like I said, I think he's overrated too. I know the value might be decent, but, I mean, every player they got, for the most part, you look at them, they can play inside, they can play outside. You know, it's just they punted on getting better players to go versatile, and I think they made a mistake.
I think so too. You only have we know how narrow a window it is. And when you get to a certain point, there are other people who are going to get better. And if you don't try to, and I don't mean a big reach splash, but I mean, if there's somebody on the board that could really make a difference for your team, getting a bunch of versatile players, this is what the Browns used to do. Trade down, get more picks, and then get a bunch of versatile players. And that bunch of versatile players, they were versatile, but they were not really big-time starters. They were people who they would take X number of snaps in a game, and it wasn't the predominant number. So, you know, their safety...
They were people who were not good at anything, really. They were like prunk, you know, project donkeys. I mean, this is what this Bengals draft looks like. They all look like projects. Do any of them look like they could start in the first game of the season or the?
I don't think any of these
season?
Players that I'm reading their names off right now, Bronk, is a guy who's just going to fit right in and get predominant numbers of snaps and games.
I think
Tyson Anderson, the safety out of Toledo. I mean, you know, this is, again, another C kind of B minus C pick. You know, they're saying that he's going to be part of a 3 safety package, perhaps. You see, they're going to go that route, different packages, and so you'll see his snaps that way. That's a round 5, pick 166. And this is if he makes the team out of Toledo. Okay.
Yeah.
And then Jeffrey Gunter from Coastal Carolina. He has a nice tan. But, you know, he again, playing against, you know, I don't even know who Coastal Carolina plays in football. To be very honest with you, our Sacred Heart of antagonism. I don't know who they play. He tallied 38 tackles for a loss and 17 sacks, and they're in the Sun Belt. That's where he played.
Yeah,
You know.
Their draft was, I mean, especially considering they're coming off of literally being in the Super Bowl, you would have thought that they would have taken this opportunity and just bolstered their team. But like you were saying, Daxton Hill is right now the only guy that I think comes in and starts. And the only reason why I say that is just because of that versatility to where he can play that slot corner as well as safety. But I don't understand what they were going for with this draft, to be honest with you.
I think
it just didn't make sense.
They
ahead,
do
Peter.
have some. I think they do have some spots because one, they still have Eli Apple starting, who we know he's kind of been around the league, And then obviously, they have the whole situation with Jesse Bates, who we know their owner doesn't like to spend money. So I think they were kind of drafting just in case he doesn't want to take a little pay cut.
Right. But he's an important player on that team emotionally.
Yeah, that's true.
And
But yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, yeah, we're just gonna see if the owner wants to pay because we know he's cheap.
Well, there you have it. I mean, and this is why, Cincinnati, may be at the top for a moment, but there's a lot of fire at their feet from below. I'm looking at a team and player draft value tracker. This is an interesting thing. What they do is they give you the most underdrafted, the best values for all teams, and then the most overdrafted, who are the worst values. All right. And when you start looking at the top 250 players drafted, they rank teams based on that. And if you look at the Cleveland Browns, we're like number 22, and it's a scale that goes like all the way to 60. And and the lower your number, the better a draft that you had. We're 22 and the Bengals are 30. Okay. So, you're looking at players who, like, the best value players would be like Rasheed Walker from the Packers, Sam Howell for the Commanders. The Browns, Isaiah Thomas is rated as a good value for where they got him. Malik Willis is considered a good value for, dropping to the third round. Perion Winfrey is also considered a best value, right? The most overdrafted people, meanwhile, are people who, and I'm trying to see if we are even on, we don't have any, but the Bengals do. Cordell Volson. But other than, I'm looking at all of these names and I don't even know who the hell they are. Obviously the Buccaneers, Jake Camarda, people were scratching their heads saying why. But by and large, the teams that show up on, the worst values are people. I see the Bills are up there for Christian Benford. But these are people who may have just gotten picked way too high. And I think Derek, Martin Emerson would be on your list.
Yeah.
I find it interesting that everybody is saying that the Browns and the Bengals had the worst draft. And
I think here's what I'll say, though, just to jump in real quick. I think the difference between the Browns draft and Cincy's draft was, I think the Bengals drafted thinking these players would play now, and I don't think they should. The Browns draft was more so for like a year or two down the road, where we got guys like Alex Wright, who's a developmental guy who could be great, in my opinion. Emerson, I mean, as much as we hate it, I think they're thinking down the road there, just guys like that. Whereas Cincy, I think they just said, all right, let's get guys who we can plug and play now. And it's like, you passed on some pretty good talent there.
That's it.
Ohio buddies.
Yeah. And I think that's, looking at the Steelers, who got very good grades, high grades for their draft, when you have the 20th overall pick and you pick Kenny Pickett, I understand that he was the top rated quarterback in the class, but this is a guy who his first 3 years in college was a disaster.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we're talking about somebody who wasn't even on the professional radar.
Wow.
He'd shot up the draft boards because, his team went 11-3. Now, and look, the University of Pittsburgh is not a team that traditionally is going to go 11-3 in a season. He threw for 4,308 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. And that was over a 13-game schedule.
I'll say this: the one thing that nobody's talking about with Kenny Pickett, he had great weapons at receivers. Jordan Addison next year is going to be a first-round pick. I think he should be a high first-round pick. So it's not like he was doing this with a bunch of nobodies either. He had a lot of help.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a good arm, and he's capable of throws that not every guy can make. He's accurate, and he's a good athlete who can at least extend plays with his legs. The problem is that he was such a late bloomer, and we're talking about it. He's already 24 years old. He was his 5th year, because he was redshirted. His 5th year at Pittsburgh, that's when he had his big season. So this is a guy who was 5 years in college and had one good year. And I don't care about his hand size or his dick size, but again, this is, right now this whole thing is not set up for Kenny Pickett to come in and be the starting quarterback, mind you.
Yeah.
But if, in fact, Kenny Pickett just turns out to be like so many other guys who had a nice statistical year with a school that had a good college that had a good season, but doesn't shape up, Mitch Trubisky is going to be the starting quarterback.
And keep in mind that
Mason Rudolph is going to be the team bigot. So you have that going for you there in Pittsburgh.
And keep in mind the ACC this year was very down.
Clemson's
normally a powerhouse. They sucked. The rest of the AFC. ACC. Yeah, ACC sucked. So the fact that Pitt jumped out to me is not that they didn't have a good year, because they did, but it's not also because they had great competition. They had nobody,
Derek, I mean, I was watching a lot of the draft, and it seemed to me the teams were doing a lot of picking of hometown people, and this Kenny Pickett example seems like a very blatant example, but there seemed to have been like the Carolina picked some guy from Carolina, and I mean there was a lot of like marketing picks that were strictly for the fans and they couldn't have been the best player available. There seemed like a lot of hometown picking going on in this draft.
Just depends. Akem Ekwonu was definitely the best player when they picked. Well, no. Did they have their first choice of tackles?
Yeah.
They had Evan Neal was still on the board, but I mean, it's how you judge it.
I just wanted to point out to Amsterdam, it ain't work, baby. All right. But so if we're going to judge Pittsburgh's draft, you start with that first round pick. And yes, they had a need. All right.
And they got their guy.
And they got the guy that they wanted, and it's a weak quarterback class.
Yep.
And if he is not the kind of player who is going to develop, then this draft now falls upon the shoulders. And I think that all quarterbacks who come into the league are long shots. I mean, if you take a look at the first round pick, overall, not just number ones, but the first round picks over the years of quarterbacks, far more fail than succeed.
Oh, God, there's far more Chad Henningtons than there are Justin Herberts and Joe Burrows.
That's right. So the odds are against Kenny Pickett. I've never really watched him play seriously. I did watch Pitt play a few times. I wasn't focused on him particularly, and his name started coming in more during the season. I think because between him and Malik Willis, who I kept telling anybody who would listen to me that he was going to drop out of the first round, there was just nobody to talk about here. There just were no quarterbacks to talk about. So I guess that's the first pick. Then Pickens is the second round, 52nd overall. We've talked a lot about George Pickens.
Oh God.
And if they were pissed off about Chase Claypool, they've got another head case, okay?
Oh yeah.
Tomlin got his work cut out.
Look at his draft reaction. I mean, on the field he's great, but my goodness.
That's a menace.
There is have a burgeoning head case. This was what my rap was on George Pickens when people saying, well, how about going to the Browns? And it's like, once burned, twice shy, well, I'm sick of the talent bullshit. And when the people are just, when they don't want to play for a team or they start thinking they're better than they are, he had a great freshman season. He tore his ACL in March of 2021. And he's had behavioral issues. Again, fans is good in contested catch situations. And I'll just never, for as long as I live, when Gordon came our way and it was like Baylor, okay, what's the story? Who is this guy? And then I saw him on the field. I went, there must be something wrong here. This guy is far too dominating at the NFL level. And you looked at his history, and his history was laced with talent and trouble. And sure enough, I look at George Pickens, and this stuff, and it's amazing what NFL teams can talk themselves into when they need something. There's no doubt that this guy has a large amount of talent, but you can play your way out of the league, be a lousy teammate, and literally, create all kinds of problems. So that's getting an A- for them. Pickens, nothing more in my mind than a B or a C pick. Because if your first round doesn't make it in the league, then that's a problem. Go ahead.
Would they have been better off taking a proper wide receiver in the first round and help that Kenny Pickett went on to the second round? I mean, that actually
a good question.
That seems like a good strategy to me. They could have gotten a much better receiver and still probably gotten Pickett or Pickens or whatever his name is.
Yeah,
I don't know who was available at the time. That's my only problem with that. I mean, I do agree with you. He could have slipped into the second, definitely, but
it's kind of like a premature ejaculation problem, Bronk. Not that you know about that. I don't want to make cast
quite the
aspersions.
opposite, actually.
Yeah, you hang in there a long time. That's what I've heard. The problem is that when you have a need, my father used to have a saying. He had a lot of sayings, but he goes, when you're a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
Correct, yeah.
And that is what I wonder is if their need for a quarterback, when they took a look at Trubisky, who just never amounted to anything, and God only knows Mason Rudolph never will. This is a football team with Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Najee Harris, and Pat Freiermuth. I think Freiermuth is a fine player.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
Chase Claypool, I think, is a head case.
Yep.
And putting him together with Pickens is kind of like Slim Pickens.
they'll fight each other.
Yeah,
They're totally different personalities.
Yeah,
The same type of player.
And, Najee Harris, I remember when Trent Richardson ran for almost 1,000 yards in his rookie year with Cleveland.
Yes.
And I looked at Najee Harris and I said, I saw Nick Chubb play in his rookie year, and I don't see anything in Najee Harris that makes me think that he's anything more than a locomotive. I don't see him as having the great feet or the great vision. I see him hammering into the line and getting whatever, and his yards per carry were not particularly good. He reminded me of Trent Richardson, to be very honest with you.
Yeah, I agree
He was their
with
number
that.
one receiver.
Yeah, but well, that's it. But why? If you were holding onto the ball for 2.2 seconds like Ben Roethlisberger was, who in the fuck else are you going to throw the ball to?
Yeah.
Check down.
That's right. Check down automatically because you're afraid to get hit. That's what was happening in Pittsburgh. So again, these are things that I just think about. I don't know that I'm right or wrong about them. But Pickens is an A- pick amongst the consensus of people because of his talent. Round 3, the 94th pick, they got DeMarvin Leal out of a defensive lineman out of Texas A&M.
This is the one I'm terrified about.
Yeah.
He's getting B grades across the internet. He entered his college final season as a projected first rounder and a potential top 10 pick, but he struggles with consistency. This is a problem. If you're having trouble finding consistency in an 11-12 game schedule, 17 weeks, 18 weeks in the NFL is going to be like boot camp. He is a 3-technique guy. He's an interior defensive lineman. He's the kind of player the Steelers like to have.
Yep.
He at A&M, he was on the edge a lot.
Yep.
However, he's probably going to be more of a nose guy, more of a 3-technique on the interior defensive line. So, is that a good pick? It may not be, 94th overall. We're going to see whether he can be consistent or whether he disappears for periods of time. When you got Calvin Austin III out of Memphis, in round 4, you got to say that is an A- pick. The only wrap is size, and he's fast. He may be a guy who, because of the coordination in Pittsburgh, becomes almost like a gadget player. He's going to become.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
He's their Ray McLeod with a way better skill set. And back to DeMarvin Leal real quick. The reason why I say I'm terrified with that pick is because, and you mentioned it, he's versatile. He played outside on the edge a lot at A&M. He played inside. He's very athletic. Yes, he did struggle with consistency and everything like that. Whoops. But my problem is more so who he's playing with. Having his athletic ability on the same line as TJ Watt, Cameron Hayward, Tuitt, that's what scares me, because yes, he might not be consistent, but his athletic ability and his skill set, that could turn out to be very, very nasty as far as who he's with in that unit.
I just wanted to add too, the thing about him, and he's basically like your classic tweener. He's too slow on the outside and he's too weak on the inside. But he's like another Steelers player they already have on the team in Tuitt, and I think they trained up Tuitt to be a good player on the interior, and I think they could maybe do the same thing with the guy they drafted.
Now, the only other pick, there are a few others. Connor Hayward, who was a fullback out of Michigan State. That is not particularly a big deal. The round 7 pick, Mark Robinson out of Ole Miss, is interesting. You say Pittsburgh and linebacker, they know how to pick them. Okay. Now, recently with Devin Bush and all of that stuff, it hasn't gone so well in Pittsburgh, and they need, and they found a fellow who is a human bowling ball. All right. He's a strong player. He did 34 bench reps, man. Guy's a beast. But he's also very athletic. He closes gaps in the box, and he's a really hard hitter. This is a guy for a round 7 pick, is somebody to keep your eyes on, only because Pittsburgh's scheme is so built around linebackers that they know how to use their picks. So
he'll be on the roster because he'll play special teams, so he's not going to get cut.
Now,
Steelers are going to have to win a lot of games again by holding them below 20 points.
That's the way it looks right now, yeah.
They're going to have to win a lot of games like that.
And if they don't get their running game up and going in Pittsburgh, they're going to have trouble holding people to below 20 points a game. They need to keep the ball in their hands for longer periods of time. Now, the Ravens, and we'll finish the show with the Ravens here.
Probably the best draft.
By far the best
Ever.
draft.
Oh, my God.
I mean, their first number of their first up through round 4 were just Kyle Hamilton. Nobody's going to question the fact that if Pittsburgh knows linebackers, the Ravens know safeties. Okay,
Especially in that safety room, Kyle Hamilton's going to be able to just play the role that he does best. With Marcus Williams now, who they added along with those corners, I cannot believe that he fell to them. That just pisses me off.
Yeah, I mean, they've been blessed in the past. At 25, Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa. There's a center that they need, an offensive lineman, another human tractor out of Iowa, which seems to produce such players.
Future Hall of Famer.
I mean,
He's incredible.
There are people who feel very strongly about this player. And again, within the scheme of what works for the Ravens, the running game.
Yep.
And this is something that is going to repeat itself over and over again in this draft for this team. They got David Ojabo out of Michigan.
That one hurt.
Yeah.
What?
I was saying that one hurt. Yeah, that one hurt.
Yeah, I mean, so
him
again,
and Owe in a year. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, what we're looking at here is a team that is building up its strength in its running game and is building up its defense with pass rush and with pass coverage. And then they come up with a defensive tackle, Travis Jones, in round 3.
Who's a monster. Not a lot of people know about him because it's a smaller school. Travis Jones was somebody me and a couple other people really kept their eye on for the Browns. That dude, and especially him with Metabuke long term, my goodness. That defensive line is going to be very, very nasty.
And he's a guy who's super athletic and didn't get the clout or whatever you want to say because Jordan Davis was in this class and Trayvon Walker, but he's a crazy athlete at his size at 325.
Now, the other thing, you start out in round 4 with the 110 pick and you get Falale out of Minnesota, the 390-pound behemoth.
He might play guard. He might kick inside and play guard, and they might pull this monster at 384 pounds. Him and I forgot
Ben
his
Cleveland.
name. Well, him. So they drafted him and Linderbaum. Both of them are.
Wow.
I mean, obviously Falele more than Linderbaum, but both are very athletic. They're going to pull both of those guys. Like, can you imagine essentially like if we pulled Wyatt Teller in the run game? Like how dominating that would be. That's what the Ravens are going to do with this entire offense.
Well, and this is, again, the only dampener I can put on all of this is that they didn't do a fucking thing to help Lamar Jackson. All right? except to improve the defense and the running game.
Yeah, they're gonna run him more.
And
tight ends,
that's
too.
true, but this draft makes them the favorites in our division again now, I think. Anyone agree with that?
It depends on Deshaun, in my opinion. For me,
Yeah.
well, what depends to me is that this 2-year was going to be a 2-year storyline of Lamar Jackson and his tweeting what the fuck after they pick people. The question is his rush to his big payday, which I think is more important to Lamar Jackson than most anything else. I think he wants to win a championship because it will make him wealthier. Yeah. I don't see that quarterback has proven to me that he is a successful downfield thrower. And the draft is telling me that the Ravens don't think so either. And that, damn it, that Lamar Jackson can say what he wants to say. His agent can sit on the sidelines. They can ignore offers that are being given to him. And they're going to draft the fucking way they draft. And they're going to play Ravens football.
I will say just quickly, the one pick as far as these lower picks that I can't believe they got, Isaiah Likely. You might not see a lot of him this year, but he's basically a receiver playing tight end, and Lamar loves his tight ends. He completed 49.5% to his tight ends. So I hated that pick just because of how they love to use that
another
position.
Coastal Carolina player. But again, if you have a guy who probably couldn't make it as a wide receiver in the NFL, but is a wide receiver, and he's going to be at a mismatch as a tight end, this becomes again they already have a prolific tight end in Baltimore,
Mark Andrews.
That's right, and this is part of the way they win is with power. They will fatigue you. This is Harbaugh football, and it's they didn't have any problem whatsoever letting the wide receiver Brown go away.
Yeah,
they had no problem with that because they would not utilize him, and it might be because they don't feel that's their strength, or it might be because Lamar Jackson's strength isn't throwing the deep ball. I don't know.
Plus, he wasn't really a scheme fit because he needs to be in more of a pass heavy, and we know the Ravens like to run it and then heavy play action and that type of thing.
It's going to be interesting, though. They got 2 years to play this whole drama out with Lamar Jackson. All of these drafts from the Ravens are good, solid picks for the kind of football that they play, and they're going to be tough. I say that they're going to be tougher than Pittsburgh, and they're going to be tougher than us in Cincinnati. I do believe that if, and I'm saying the big if Lamar Jackson stays healthy, or as long as he keeps a positive attitude, they're putting more pieces together, and the Ravens don't rebuild, they reload. This is what they do. So this is all, to me, very, very consistent within that organization.
Lamar will be a Dolphin in the next couple years, in my opinion. But even in that, Huntley, I mean, look at what he did last year. He was basically Lamar, just cheaper. So even if they do lose Lamar, they got Lamar 2.0, who's a better passer.
And something, the way they're building up their offensive line and they're building up their defense, so if it doesn't work out with Lamar Jackson, in the worst case scenario, they could, in a future draft, pull down a quarterback. Yeah. I mean, with the talent that they have up front, they're actually going to have their starting running backs this year. They could make a real important move in all of this. So great draft for them. I'm basically finished with what I have to say. It being Friday, I'm ready for the weekend. Me and Loverboy. I was going to make a Mike Reno reference, but if I say Mike Reno, they say, "Oh, and who's that?" And that's the lead singer from Loverboy. Everybody's working for the weekend. Yeah, I'm stuck in the 80s. This pretty well says it all. Yes, Joe Shipley is happy, and in a way that makes me sad. Thanks everybody for tuning in to this edition of Boohead Radio. Thank you, Bronk. I hope you're feeling better. Peter, thanks as always for getting an auxiliary cable. So your microphone now you sound like a professional broad chaser. What we really need is a broadcaster, but that's close enough. And
Can I make a final shitty comment?
sure you can.
Yeah, just to humor me. How many of you have ever had general anesthetic?
Oh, I have.
Any of you young lads?
No.
No.
All right, well then Moo will get this. The big event of general anesthetic happens 48 to 72 hours later when you finally have a proper shit.
Yeah, right. And the constipation factor.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. I know. What I did, I made it a point to, when I came out of general anesthesia, they intubate you, right?
Correct, yes.
And so it feels really like, like Ron Jeremy was forcing himself on you. So you end up with a sore throat, scratchy voice.
Yep.
But I wanted to tell a joke, the first thing out of general anesthesia, and I managed to do it.
Okay.
And I'll tell you the joke I told. They were wheeling me because I don't remember. I just remember I came to as they were wheeling me toward my, the waiting room, the area where the recovery area, right? And so I look up, and I see the ceiling going with the lights going by me. And I said, how did they know? I should do it like Gilbert Gottfried. How did they know that Abraham Lincoln was Jewish?
Oh.
And these orderlies are whizzing me down the hall, and they're looking like he's delirious.
Yeah.
And I go, he was shot in the temple. Okay.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's horrible.
They looked at each other and started laughing. They go, he's actually coherent. Yeah. That's my great general anesthesia story, but you're right. You can sit there and don't force yourself because you'll only get hemorrhoids, okay?
Oh, well, I had that moment earlier today, and it was like blessed relief.
Yeah. Did they give you Miralax or anything like that?
No, I didn't ask for it either. I knew this was coming, so I sort of like just drank lots of fluids. Well,
Miralax is really good because it's not like a harsh chemical thing.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to me, we're talking about laxatives.
But we're talking shit here. I mean,
this is important.
You should have just went to Taco Bell.
I mean, people say
true.
I talk shit on this program, and that's what I'm doing. I'm talking shit. So
yeah, there you go.
But
yeah, the Miralax is good because all it does is it draws water into your intestinal tract that moves things along. It's not harsh at all. And usually, if you take it the very next day, like if you take it at bedtime, you'll wake up, and the early morning to the later morning, you'll end up crapping. So And now, sometimes if it happens real fast, it will be on your living room carpet. So you have to be careful about that.
Well, that's the thing, too. I can't move very quickly, so I have to plan ahead for 10, 15 minutes to get to where the
You need
toilet is.
GPS, how far am I away from my bathroom?
Oh, literally. You have no idea. I have very narrow stairways, very narrow hallways. Takes me a half hour to go from one end of the house to the other.
Oh, man. All right, everybody. I want you to all have a great weekend. Derek, thank you again for bringing what you bring to the show. This is, it's great to have somebody who's reading different stuff than I'm reading and, and watching film and all that. So thank you.
Yeah,
thank everybody.
I torture myself watching Martin Emerson film for this show. I hope you're happy.
Wow.
That you took one for the team. And thanks to everybody for supporting the program. We'll see you again come Monday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastriots. Good night.
Mo.